Leeds United are a 3-time English top-flight champion, even winning the title as recently as the 1991-1992 season. The club have had its fair share of ups and downs, even spending some time in English football's third tier, followed by a 10-season spell in the Championship before returning to the Premier League. However, after finishing a respectable 9th in that first season back in the Premier League, the club's fortunes dipped again, narrowly avoiding relegation on the final day of the 21-22 season before suffering relegation back to the Championship on the final day of the 22-23 season. So today's objective is simple: take over Leeds United in the Championship and take them back to where they belong at the top of English football. Diving into FM24 for Season 1, you can see why this squad is fighting it out for automatic promotion at the top of the Championship. I want to immediately bring your attention though to forward 𝗕𝗪𝗘𝗘𝗏 and midfielder 𝗪𝗔𝗪𝗘𝗏. Gnonto is very raw, but possesses everything you need to be a real danger in Football Manager, and his electric physical attributes coupled with his high dribbling and technique make him a handful. Next up, we have Academy graduate 𝗪𝗔𝗪𝗘𝗏, who will be the heartbeat of this team for me, and I will be playing him immediately in every single game. Tactic wise, I'll be running GYR's Master of Puppets, which is a 4-3-3 tactic, which looks like this in game, and this is the best 11 as things stand. However, you will notice several players at the club are out on loan elsewhere, so we will have to look at achieving promotion without them. We still very much have the firepower to get out of this division, and that will be our main goal for season number 1. The board are expecting a playoff finish, but I want to go one step further and get that automatic promotion. We're 13-8 to win the title, with fellow relegated sides Leicester City and Southampton predicted to finish above us. Season 1 was all about promotion back to the Premier League, and we managed to achieve that, but not in the most successful way possible. We finished the season with 99 points, beating Norwich to the title by 3 points, and booking the Premier League spot that we so coveted for next season. Things would have looked a little bit better for us, but we managed to only pick up 1 point in our final 3 games of the season. In domestic cup competitions, we had a flying visit in the Carabao Cup, exiting in the first round, losing to Sunderland on penalties. However, our run in the FA Cup was much more fruitful. We entered the competition in the third round, where we were able to dispatch Premier League side Fulham at Ellen Road before taking out League One side Oxford in the fourth round, the dominant 5-2 victory on the road. It was Premier League opposition again in the fifth round, where we faced Brentford away from home, and we even needed extra time to get the job done, but Jorginho Rutter and Ilya Grulev both bagged to see us advance into the quarter-finals. This time it was Championship opposition in the face of Middlesbrough, and even though we lost both leagues fixtures to Borough, we managed to pull out a dub, securing an impressive 5-2 win. This set up a huge trip to Wembley for the semi-final, where we would take on Tottenham. Goals from 𝗪𝗔𝗪𝗘𝗏 and Bentancur proved that this would be a step too far for us this season, but it was a real statement of intent from the boys to get all the way to the FA Cup semi-finals. So it was a case of job done for season number 1, and we will be playing Premier League football next season, and our top player this season was wide man Jadon Anthony, who was on loan from Bournemouth. Ahead of next season, we have several squad players coming back from loans, which will bolster this squad, and we have just shy of £50 million to spend to make this team Premier League ready. So let's get to it. Moving into Season 2, I felt like I didn't actually need to sign a lot of players, so I was still sat on loads of money in the bank. 2 players left the club in the summer, including Diego Llorente, who joined Roma for £4.3 million, and Patrick Bamford, who joined Hull City for £3 million. On the incoming side of things, we brought in Dutch fullback 𝗕𝗓𝗏𝗏 on a free transfer following his contract ending at Chelsea, and we splashed a little bit of cash to activate the relegation release clause of 𝗪𝗚𝗪𝗍, who joined on a cut price fee of £22.5 million. Eze comes straight into our best 11 to play alongside 𝗪𝗔𝗪𝗏𝗏 in midfield, but we have a fresh look with all of last season's loanees returning to the club. Competition-wise, we of course return to the Premier League, and that will be our priority this season, with the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup taking a back seat. We've actually been given title odds of 350 to 1, which isn't actually the worst for a newly promoted side, but we are predicted to finish in 13th. So I have to jump in here and tell you that this season was an absolute madness. In the Premier League, we were handed a tough start with fixtures against Liverpool, Aston Villa and Manchester United off the bat, but we managed to piece together some good victories throughout October and even went on an 8-game unbeaten run from December all the way through to February. This resulted in a remarkable league position as we finished in 7th place with 57 points, and 𝗕𝗏𝗏𝗘𝗡 really stepped up this season, bagging 21 goals in the Premier League, finishing 2nd in the Golden Boot race behind you-know-who. However, this season did not stop there because we built on the success that we had in last season's FA Cup. We of course entered the competition in the 3rd round where we were able to knock off a few lower league sides early, dispatching Charlton and Wigan without really breaking a sweat. Up next was now Championship side Luton Town in the 5th round, but the boys really turned up on the road, ripping through them to secure a 5-2 win. Moving into the quarters, and we came up against Spurs, the side that knocked us out of the competition last year. This time, we were able to come out on top thanks to 𝗕𝗏𝗏𝗘𝗡 bagging a goal in each half to really fire out a statement of intent whilst getting our own back on Tottenham. And then we had the big test, Manchester City in the semi-finals at Wembley. That man Erling Haaland opened the scoring for Pep's boys, but the FM gods were smiling down on us as Ruben Diaz put the ball in the back of his own net with one of the most ridiculous goals you will ever see. In the second half, Luis Sinisterra put us into the lead for the first time in the game, only to see KDB pull the game level from the spot in the 87th minute, forcing the game into extra time, where we intercepted the ball nicely and sprung a ball over the top to Somerville, who raced away and fired past Ortega to book us a place in the FA Cup final. A month later, the boys returned to Wembley for that cup final, where we would take on West Ham. The Hammers opened the scoring through Bobby Firmino's long-range strike, but Academy boy Archie Gray headed us level just a few minutes later. Just before halftime, Maximilian Wöber headed us into the lead from a free kick, and 𝗕𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗘𝗏 doubled our advantage in the second half. Angel Correa did pull a goal back for West Ham, but we managed to secure the club's 2nd FA Cup in its history. This was a remarkable season, and the FA Cup win means that we will be in the Europa League next season. And we have a whopping £62 million to spend to take this team into Europe. This transfer window going into Season 3 was absolutely crazy, and we managed to generate over £100 million in player sales. First up, Joel Pirro joined Middlesbrough for £26 million, and he was followed out the door by Jamie Shackleton, who joined Al Hilal for £30 million, and is somehow on £325k a week. Ilham Meslier decided he wanted that lifestyle as well, so he also moved to Saudi Arabia for £39.5 million and securing the bag, being put on a 450k a week contract. And finally, we moved on Ilya Gurulev, Glenn Kamara and Dan James for a total of £18.5 million. On the incoming side of things, we improved in both fullback spots, securing Scottish international Josh Doig from Verona for £8.5 million and Valentin Gendry from Lecce for £5.25 million. We also secured the services of Mexican international defender Victor Guzman, who joined from Monterrey for £9.5 million, and Tommy Doyle joined on a free transfer following his contract expiring at Manchester City. And then the real spending began. To replace the Saudi-bound Meslier, we signed Croatian shot stopper Dominik Livakovic from Fenerbahce for £24.5 million. We then followed that up with signing transfer-listed Emil Smith-Rowe from Arsenal for £18.5 million. And finally, we then dropped £55 million on this man. Evan Ferguson joined us from Brighton, having not really nailed down a place in their team, and let me tell you, he will definitely be our starting striker here. We now have several options in the final third and look incredibly solid at the back with this summer's additions, but Archie Gray will continue to be pinned into this centre mid spot to fast track his development. Competition wise, we will be making our return to the Europa League, a competition Leeds have won twice in their history, so I will be gunning to make that 3 this season. Premier League wise, the board want a mid-table finish, and looking at the pre-season odds, we're predicted to finish in 13th, but I think we can do much better than that. As FA Cup holders, we kicked off the season with the Community Shield, where Arsenal taught us a lesson, smashing us to pieces with a dominant 4-0 win. Perhaps we have more work to do here than I was expecting. This was followed up by a very poor defence of our FA Cup trophy as we crashed out to Championship side Sunderland on the road in the 4th round. In the Premier League, it took us a while to improve that team cohesion, with several new names joining the squad in the summer. But in the new year, we really put together a remarkable run, going unbeaten from January 1st all the way to the end of the season. This run skyrocketed us up to a top 4 finish, with us achieving 21 wins throughout the season and amassing a total of 74 points. So next season we will be playing in the Champions League yet again, but there is still one more cup competition that I haven't spoken about this season, and that's the Europa League. We were drawn in the league phase alongside Maccabi Tel Aviv, Reims, Besiktas, Feyenoord, Astana, Werder Bremen, Olympiacos and Real Sociedad. Again, we put together another unbeaten run, this time going the entire league phase, winning 7 of our 8 games and only conceding a single goal along the way. It is no surprise that we finished top of the Europa League table and automatically qualified for the knockout stages. This is where we come up against French side Reims and a battle of the English managers, as I would take on Will Still. The French side took the lead at home in the first leg, but the boys were able to rally around and pull level through Emile Smith Rowe. Back at Ellen Road, we took charge of the tie with an early goal from Evan Ferguson, and we finished it off with another from Smith Rowe. This set up a quarter-final tie with Italian giants Roma. We were at home in the first leg, and this time we really showed that we are no pushovers, brushing them aside with a comfortable 4-1 win on the night to take back to Rome. Jose's boys came out on the attack in the second leg, but we were able to pick them off on the counter, winning the game 2-0 on the night and winning the tie 6-1 on aggregate. Powering into the semi-finals, we'd come up against Turkish side 𝗕𝗏𝗏𝗔𝗓. Now, I know this video is fiction, but I just want to take a moment to talk about a real occasion that happened in Istanbul in 2000, where 2 Leeds United supporters were killed in a UEFA Cup competition, I think it was. Apologies if I've got that wrong. I just want to take a second to just say, obviously I know this is fiction. Thoughts are with the family, supporters, all of these people that were impacted by this, because it was a very, very tragic incident. Let's get back to the video. In the first leg, we came out on top with goals from Tommy Doyle, Wilfried Gnonto and Valentin Gendry, seeing us run out 3-2 winners on the night. Back in Leeds, we opened up a 2-goal lead with Jack Harrison and Luis Sinisterra hitting the back of the net. 𝗕𝗏𝗏𝗘 pulled one back through Krzysztof Piatek to give us something to think about in the closing stages, but we moved into the final with a 5-3 aggregate win. It was German opposition in the final as we take on Wolfsburg, who did themselves no favours as Asta Vrank received a suspect red card in the 22nd minute, with the game level at 0-0. Following the red card, we took charge of the tie and the goals rained down on the Germans, with Gendry, Gray, Roca, Guzman and Gnonto getting on the score sheet, with us running out a 6-0 win. This was the 3rd Europa League in Leeds United history in what was a remarkable season, considering we were a championship side just 2 years ago. Moving into season 4, we have yet another war chest to spend, as we have a transfer budget of £72 million and almost 300k a week in my wage budget. So let's get to spending. In this summer window, Al Ittihad came calling, scooping up no less than 4 of our players. First up, they signed Somerville on a free transfer before dropping almost 100 million on Rutter, Aronson and Guzman. This influx of cash actually allowed me to go shopping in a summer transfer window where I didn't really think we needed to add too much. First up, I replaced the Guzman size hole in our defensive line as I picked up Italian defender Luis Felipe on a free and Spanish international Pau Torres from Aston Villa for 64 million. And then I brought a true Leeds man back to the club as I re-signed Calvin Phillips to give us some title-winning experience, having only been a bit part player at Manchester City for a few seasons. This is the best 11 going into season 4, and one thing that I'm particularly proud of is the home nations flavour that we have, as we have 7 of our best 11 coming from either England, Ireland or Scotland. Competitions wise, we will replace the Europa League with the Champions League this season, and we will be playing in the UEFA Super Cup, where we would take on last season's Champions League winners, a surprising Benfica. In the Premier League, we are creeping up on the predictions table, as this season we are predicted to finish in 8th and have title odds of 50-1. This year, the season started with the UEFA Super Cup, where we would represent the Europa League, taking on Benfica. I was stunned with how this game went. We dominated from start to finish and ran out 7-3 winners, with goals from Emil Smith-Rowe, Archie Gray, Valentin Gendry, 𝗕𝗨𝗬𝗘𝗚, and a brace from Calvin Phillips. Not a bad way to reintroduce yourself to the Leeds faithful. This wouldn't be the only trophy of the season, because we were fighting on multiple fronts in several competitions whilst putting in very, very good performances. We made it all the way to the Carabao Cup semi-finals, where we somehow lost over 2 legs to Sheffield United after knocking out both Liverpool and Manchester City in this competition. So you can really see the level that this team is at right now. It was a similar story of progress in the FA Cup, however this run was somewhat easier. In the 3rd round, we dispatched Blackpool with ease before squeaking past Bournemouth on the road. We required extra time to beat Brighton in the 5th round, but Luis Felipe was able to head home the winner. This set up a quarter-final tie with Everton, and this one went all the way to penalties, where Dominic Livakovic came up huge, saving penalties from Amadou Onana and Moussa Ndiaye to see us progress. The semi-final threw up an interesting opponent as we took on Championship side Rotherham, but you can only beat what's in front of you, I guess. Which we did comfortably with a brace from Evan Ferguson and a goal from Jack Harrison. This set up an FA Cup final appearance yet again, and this time we would take on Crystal Palace, where the big man Evan Ferguson fired home the only goal of the game early to see us win the FA Cup for a 2nd time in 3 seasons. In the Premier League, we were exceptional, even with unexpected losses to Norwich and Nottingham Forest. We were able to win 26 of our 38 games and win the Premier League title with a total of 83 points to achieve a remarkable league and cup double. This was also the club's return to the Champions League since the 2000-2001 season, and we didn't disappoint in that either. In the league phase, we were drawn alongside Shakhtar, Nice, Barcelona, Dortmund, Celtic, Porto, Benfica and Inter Milan, where we somehow managed to go unbeaten, even managing to beat Barcelona in the process. Those results meant we finished 7th in the league table and automatically qualified for the knockout stages. In the round of 16, we came up against French side Monaco, where we lost the game in the Principality 3-2, but we did enough to get the job done at home. Back at Ellen Road, the boys were as good as expected, and goals from Jack Harrison and Evan Ferguson saw us progress with a 4-3 aggregate win. This set up an all-English semi-final where we would take on Liverpool. The first leg was at Anfield, where Dominic Szoboszlai cancelled out Jack Harrison's opener, with the game ending in a 1-1 draw. The game at home was supremely tight and was settled by an 𝗕𝗨𝗬𝗘𝗚 penalty in the 2nd half of extra time. That penalty saw us progress to the semi-finals, where we would take on German juggernauts Bayern Munich. We were at home in the first leg, but Bayern proved that they are no joke, running out 2-0 winners at Ellen Road. The second leg at the Allianz Arena in Munich was much better for us, as we managed to score 3 goals through Gnonto, Doyle and Felipe, but this was only good enough for a 3-3 draw on the night, losing the tie 5-3 on aggregate. So we'd won a treble of sorts this season with the Premier League, FA Cup and UEFA Super Cup, but this in itself was a remarkable season. And I'm going to do one more just to prove that winning the Premier League wasn't a fluke. And I have a whopping £83.5 million to improve this already amazing team. Going into this 5th and final season, we had one key outgoing, as Ethan Ampadu left the club for just over £30 million to join Saudi League side Al Ahly. On the incoming side of things, I spent just shy of £40 million, but was able to bring in 6 players in total. First up, Bernd Leno joined on a free transfer to back up Dominic Livakovic for the season, and he was followed in by Brazilian defender Roger Ibanez, who joined on a free transfer following his contract expiring in Saudi Arabia. We then added some depth in key areas as we signed Ryan Gravenberch from Liverpool for £10.25 million, Alan Velasco from AC Milan for £14.5 million, Lewis Bloom from Nice for £9.25 million, and Gabriel Barbosa from Newcastle for £5.25 million. This team is now incredibly balanced and has depth like never before, so I'm expecting a huge season this year. Competitions-wise this season, we swapped the Super Cup for the Community Shield, where we will take on Manchester United, and even though we won the Premier League last season, the pre-season title odds this year have us at 33-1 to win it again, and are predicted to finish as low as 7th. We opened the season with the Community Shield this year, where Evan Ferguson opened the scoring inside 3 minutes, and 𝗕𝗓𝗬𝗓 bagged a debut goal to double the lead. However, United battled back with goals from Marcus Rashford and 𝗕𝗨𝗬𝗓𝗓 to send the game to a penalty shootout. Dominik Livakovic turned up big in this game, saving penalties from Bruno Fernandes and Marcus Rashford, before 𝗕𝗨𝗬𝗓𝗓 missed the target with his spot kick to send us into winning the Community Shield. Start as you mean to go on, right? In the Premier League, we started like a house on fire, going unbeaten from game 1 all the way through to game 22, where we lost to Manchester City. But that result proved to be a little bit of an anomaly, as we coasted to back-to-back Premier League titles, this time winning the league with a bit more of an emphatic 9-point lead. Side note, in this season, I saw that Bournemouth had been deducted 9 points for going into administration, which is pretty rare for a Premier League side, and even better, they didn't get relegated. So shout out to Bournemouth in this simulation. However, our domestic dominance did not stop there, as we had yet another amazing run in the FA Cup. We actually managed to fire our way all the way to the final, beating Portsmouth, Brighton, Spurs, Fulham and QPR, all without conceding a single goal. This set up a final with Chelsea, and the game was very end-to-end with goals going in for both teams, but I feel the decisive moment was Livakovic yet again saving a penalty, this time from Christopher Nkunku in the 50th minute. We then scored 3 goals after that moment to win the game 4-2 and secure back-to-back FA Cups and yet another double. In the Champions League, we were drawn alongside Benfica, Young Boys, Galatasaray, Bayern Munich, Red Bull Salzburg, Almira, Ajax and Dortmund. We were good in the league phase, but suffered defeats to Benfica and Dortmund, which saw us finish 9th in the table, meaning we would have the playoff round to contend with. In that playoff round, it threw up another trip to Germany, this time to take on Bayern Leverkusen. We were on the road first, and despite Leverkusen taking the lead in the first minute of the game, we were able to battle back and win the game 4-1. Back at Ellen Road, things were eventful as well, as the game had 7 goals in it, with us losing 4-3 on the night, but progressing with a 7-5 aggregate win. And that set up an all-English tie in the round of 16 as we would take on Arsenal. We were at home in the first leg and took charge of the tie with a 2-0 win, thanks to headed goals from Archie Gray and Ryan Gravenberch. At the Emirates, Arsenal battled back with goals from Gabriel and Zinchenko, but we snuck through thanks to a 91st minute goal from summer signing Gabriel Barbosa. It was Napoli up next in the quarter-finals, and we travelled to Naples for the first leg. In this world, Napoli no longer have Victor Osimhen, but are still one hell of a side as they beat us 2-1 in the first leg, but Ryan Gravenberch did give us a lifeline with his goal in this game. At home, Alan Velasco scored the only goal of the game in the first half, and the game was ultimately going to be settled on penalties. But I have the Croatian penalty-saving monster that is Dominik Livakovic. Barbosa, Eze, Roca, Nonto and Bloom all scored their penalties for us, giving Livakovic the opportunity to send us to the semi-finals, and he did so by saving Њuģen Matija Longi's penalty. That penalty save set up a huge semi-final as we would take on Manchester United. The first leg was at Old Trafford, where we were able to cancel out United's lead on 2 separate occasions to see the game finish 2-2 and surely give us an advantage, taking the game back to Ellen Road. In Leeds, we were able to bang twice in the first half through Gravenberch and Pau Torres to ultimately run out 4-3 winners on aggregate and advance to the Champions League final. So in this season, we'd already won the Premier League and the FA Cup. We couldn't win a treble, could we? However, who should stand in our way? Only 14-time champions, Real Madrid. We were in all white for the final, but it would be Madrid who would lift the trophy thanks to Benjamin Sesko nodding home an almost impossible header to to give Madrid a 15th Champions League trophy. It was another remarkable season, but unfortunately, we fell at that final hurdle. If you want to carry this save on, the save game files will be posted on my Patreon right now for you to play. And if you do like FM24 rebuild content, check out this playlist. It's all the rebuilds we've done on this year's game.